Hey, folks, welcome to the Generational Gap. I am Robert, your resident Gen Xer, and right over there is John, our resident millennial, and right down there is Britt, our wonderful, wonderful friend Britt from the Freckles and Britt show. How are you doing this evening, Britt?
I'm good. I'm great. How are you?
Good, good, and great. Now, see, that's like a double helping of yay, right? It's like
Yeah.
ice cream, and like throw a second scoop on there, make it something great.
I'm I'm white knuckling this week, so uh, every day I'm like, is it Friday yet? But you know, it's all right. We'll get through it. So or not, I don't know. 2020. So
And it's 20, the question is, will it end at 2020? I mean, we've got a whole decade ahead of us. I mean,
Yeah.
this could be the decade to remember. Hang on.
yeah. No.
John, how are you doing this evening?
I'm all right.
Wow.
Pretty excited about our topic ahead.
Oh, you're excited. it's like,
Yeah.
Britt's like, yeah, I'm biting nails. John's like, I can't wait. Oh, yeah.
No, 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 no. No, it's gonna be
Uh,
interesting.
we got a few folks showing up this evening. We got Elephant
Also,
Man
yeah.
giving Henry the old second. Oh, Stephen
Oh, but
Ignoramus
Henry's
in the
here
house.
though, so he is first. So,
Stephen says he's
oh,
great.
Stephen.
Britt made promises she won't keep.
Well, I
Elephant
don't.
Man's.
What
Well,
I
promises?
don't know.
I don't know.
Elephant
What
Man, you'll have to
did
take
you
that up with
promise,
Elephant
Elephant
Man.
Man?
Something. I don't know. I don't.
Oh
Yeah.
no, I didn't. I will.
These are free thinkers out there. Uh, I see Wyatt in the house as well. Hello, everyone. Henry is here, of course, first as usual.
And he's first, right?
So we've Britt showed up for a reason. John, you got all excited and you were all. I saw one day the the DMs blew up in Twitter, and I'm like, "What's going on? What's going on?" I
Oh.
see Britt in there, bam, bam, bam. I'm like, "All right, cool."
Yeah. Well, I only sent out like three different DMs. One of them was to Britt. So yeah, so Britt did something. She did a thing on Twitter.
A terrible thing.
She's known to do, and it kind of lit, it kind of lit the Liberty Twitter on fire for a little while. Apparently, till now, even
Yeah.
is that true? Are they still
Yeah.
responding?
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. They're still responding. Not and like in my DMs too. Like, gosh, you guys. But I did think it's funny that I got called an e thought, and I was like, oh, you think I'm cute? So like that
Like,
shows.
oh, let's see, I got that going for me. Great.
Like, oh,
At
okay.
least I'm good enough to be an ethot. Thanks.
Like,
Like, that's funny.
wow.
But yeah, Robert, do we wanna show the tweet, Robert?
I don't know.
The
Yeah.
tweet
Do we
heard
want to make that
around
public?
the Twitter. I
Do we
don't
want to
know.
make that public for people to see? Are we those kind of
Well,
people?
I'm pretty sure she already made it public.
Oh, I made it public. I'm ready to. We can
Right.
talk about it. I stand behind what I said 100%.
Ooh, Michael
So
Vega makes a good point though in the chat there.
Which is,
Says compromises for statists.
ooh, and there you have it.
Ooh.
And yeah,
comprehend private school kids. So
so this is the offending tweet, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh
I
God, you can't even
believe,
use dark mode. Jesus Christ.
get over yourself. Get over yourself. I will add the boomer flare if I can want to add the boomer flare. I'm just saying.
Fair enough. Do
Says
you?
it says if you can't see compromise as a tool to advance liberty, you don't have a political ideology. You have a religion. Does that sound familiar, Brett?
no.
No.
That
That's
claim
not
is
me. You
disputed.
were hacked, right?
Uh, that
This point is disputed.
yeah. But I don't think people read it correctly because they kept telling me all these
Right.
reasons why they wouldn't compromise liberty, and I was like, that's fucking great. That's not what I said. So I don't know why we're having this conversation. What I said is to use compromise as a tool to advance liberty.
Right.
And if you can't do that,
Right.
if you are so stuck on an ideology that you can't compromise that for liberty, then you have a religion. You are beholden to your ideology, your political philosophy, and you don't care about advancing liberty. What I was literally saying in that, if you read it, is that it's more important to advance liberty, that to not compromise on liberty, but compromise on your ideology. If you have to, if you're
Right.
getting anywhere, look, the reason why this blew up is because the LP doesn't want to admit that they're a sinking ship. And
Yeah.
they've been going off since the election talking about how they spoiled the election and they're glad they spoiled the election and blah blah. And I'm like, okay, well, great, you spoiled the election last time, you spoiled the election for the left. Like, really, I don't think that they spoiled it for anyone. I think that they were highly ineffectual and they had a highly ineffectual message. And my point in what I was saying was, if you can find another way to advance liberty, say, we talk about people like Thomas Massey. Libertarians love to say that they're not GOP, they're not part of the right, they're not part of any other ideology. But if you bring up Thomas Massey, 90% of them will be like, yeah, I'd vote for that guy. Like, and you know what he did?
Yeah.
He compromised. He knows that the GOP isn't the party of liberty, but he did what it took. He didn't care what he called himself. He just said, let's advance liberty. And that's what he does, because he doesn't compromise on liberty. He just doesn't give a fuck what he's called. And you know what? The reason why we keep losing in liberty battles is because the left does exactly what I said. Socialists and communists, they don't care if they're called Democrats. They don't care if they're called Democratic Socialists. They don't care what you call them. They're willing to say, fine, you want to put this label on me? That's fine, as long as I can advance my agenda slowly, because they don't compromise on what they actually believe is the end goal. And for a libertarian or a liberty-minded person, the end goal should be liberty. Now, I could understand what I was expecting in that was the argument of, well, we're not compromising because we don't believe that this is a way that, you get liberty long term. And I didn't really get that
Right.
argument. I didn't get that argument hardly at all.
See, that's the point that I was planning on making tonight. Is about how compromise just begets more compromise perpetually, and so by doing a little bit of compromise at a time, you're still eroding liberty by not being able to get that extra liberty, like or getting back lost liberty, I should say. We're compromising little by little by little, but not gaining enough, or at least we're not doing that. I don't see how you can exactly push for liberty while compromising
Well, I
in
think
that way.
what you're looking at is compromising certain rights for another, certain beliefs, certain liberties for other liberties. That's not what I'm talking about.
In a way, okay.
That's not what I'm talking about at all. In fact, I'm talking about the exact opposite of that. I'm talking about people that would say, one of the things that I talk about a lot is school choice and how tax dollars should follow the student. Well, when I would never compromise backwards. I would never say, okay, we're not paying any property tax. Like, no property tax goes to schools, right? If that was the case, if we weren't paying for public education, I would never compromise backwards and say, well, maybe we'll pay a little tax if you give us a better gun law or something like that. That's a ridiculous compromise. That's not a compromise.
Right.
You don't ever do that. But when you're already in a losing position, I can't go to the people in my town. If people have tried it, I can't go to the people in my community, especially in California, and say, well, we should just not have taxes for education, no public education. That's an argument that is going to lose on its face every single time. But an argument that can win is saying, hey, school choice is better for minorities. School choice is better for kids with disabilities. Maybe instead of just
Right.
funding public education, maybe those tax dollars should follow the kids so the parents have more control over it. Then you chip away at that tyranny, and then you keep chipping away at it. Hey, you know what? We don't even really have a whole lot of kids in public school anymore. Maybe we should close down any public schools that are
Okay.
actual. like it is a continuing battle. But to just say, well, school choice and uh, we're still paying taxes. So I
Hmm.
don't want to do that. I'm not going to fight for that. If I can't have 100% of what I want, then I'm not going to fight for it. Well, it turns out you
Right.
live in a country with other people, and a lot of those other people have outnumbered you, and they have a different ideology. So if you want to get what you want, you have to figure out how to chip away at it slowly. That's how you affect change. And you have to get other
Hmm.
people on board with you to do it. That's why we have uh, four idiots that are on the left that are like the freshmen, whatever they're called. What are they called? Those
The
cheer
squad.
squad. Uh,
Yeah.
and it's like they just chip away at things slowly, slowly, where it's like, really, they shouldn't even have that much power or a huge audience,
Influence. Yeah.
but they have all this influence because they band together and they ask slowly, slowly for things. Well, of course, asking for their big agenda now. And
Right.
didn't really push this whole like democratic socialist thing right from the very start. A lot of them
Right.
were Democrat, and
Right.
now they're the
Right.
Democrat, And now it's like there's the open joke of like, oh, socialism. Like AOC made a joke about it today.
Hmm.
So where I'm asking people to compromise is their plan to attain liberty. If your
Right.
plan isn't working, find one that does, or get the fuck out of everyone else's way.
I mean,
Right, that's kind of the point I think is that we see a lot of that, and especially in the LP, the willingness to compromise, not just on rights or anything like that, but just I guess they just kind of say, hmm, I don't
I
know how
think
to word this
so. As
exactly.
soon as people get, well, let me think, let me see if this helps.
Yeah,
People get big in the LP
feels
and they move to the GOP, and that seems to be
yeah,
the issue. Okay,
and well, I think their plan is to try and affect change within the GOP, but that doesn't really seem to work for the most part.
well, it doesn't really
So
seem to be, or it's just going a lot slower.
right.
Because look at who actually
maybe
got change.
because.
Look who actually affects change and moves the GOP closer to liberty. If it wasn't for those people, then it would be a
Hmm.
lot worse off than it is. And if all those people stayed in the LP, we're not bringing so many people to the LP that the LP can overtake the GOP at this point. If it was,
Hmm.
first of all, if I had my utopia, we would have no government. But if we had to have a government and
Right.
had to decide, there would be no political parties. I find the whole ideology ridiculous.
Yeah.
I think that you should have to research everything a person has ever voted for or done before you decide if you're going to back them or not. So to me, I find it a little odd to be beholden to a party when we see people like Thomas Massey who do affect change in the GOP and who are a lot
Hmm.
more effective than they would be in the LP, where Ron Paul was more effective when he moved to the GOP,
Absolutely.
Well,
where we saw like Amash and Rand Paul, who were the ones that they're, part of the GOP. I actually can't say Amash goes back and forth. He's, you know, like it depends on the week, I guess. I would say he's a
Hmm.
GOP never Trumper. But
Sure.
he they're the ones that were pushing for like changes in policing and things like that. They're the ones that were trying to push the like no not grade, and they're part of the GOP. So it's kind of, I find it kind of unfair to say, well, that doesn't really work. No, it doesn't work as well as we want it to. It sucks. Liberty is hard. Liberty,
right.
keeping
Yeah, I
liberty
mean,
is hard.
Well,
it is. It seems like the LP, especially, but other anyone who wants to promote liberty, has been trying that for quite some time, and I don't know. I think the willingness to compromise is like not that it always is, but in these cases, it's showing like weakness, and that you can just kind of push the libertarians around, and as long as you throw them a bone once in a while, they'll do what you want, which is of course not at all what we want and what we're trying to do. But it seems like that those little compromises, along the way, are actually harming us. Because when was the last time we gained any liberty
um,
from the federal level?
I will say that I have to say, John, that you're there's an excellent example close to home for you here in Florida when we talk about
Yeah,
legalization of marijuana. They they could
kind
they
of.
when they first started this initiative, the law firms that are behind it, they said we had thought about putting it just pure legalization on the ballot. The smarter
Yeah,
thing is to compromise and get medical in the state. Once we get
right.
medical, then we can move towards getting legalization, right? And because it's easier to sell a small bit of
Yeah.
liberty,
No, I
receiving a
understand
small
that.
bit of liberty than to go and ask whole hog for everything at once because you can't sell everything at once to the general public.
Right. No, I understand that. That's why I specifically said at the federal
Well,
level.
Well,
that's
I
the
mean,
same. It applies there
we're
too.
getting really
But
close
there might
to
be
decriminalizing.
examples. I'm asking. What's
Yeah,
that?
criminalizing marijuana. We're getting extremely close to that. We're watching things happen. You know, where I mean, we did. It's been a while, but we did have things at a federal level change. I mean, gay couples in this country can get married. That was not. I mean, you're the things do change when you push for change, and libertarians were part of that, but there were people that were in the GOP that were actual libertarians at that time. We
Sure.
The thing is that sorry. um
So I'm not like attacking
I,
you or anything. I
no,
want to
I don't
explore
think you
this
are.
more. Yeah,
No, I
yeah.
actually, that's not what it was at all. Actually, I took a
Oh,
hit to my head before I
okay.
sat down, and I was like, I'm gonna
Oh,
take a
gotcha.
breath in a
Burping
minute. uh
burping up smoke and stuff.
Yeah, I was like, yes, that's exactly what I was trying to not tell
Yeah.
everyone.
Oh,
So,
gotcha.
or like cough or
I won't tell anyone.
no. I get what I think I get what you're saying. I just think that because you're not giving me an example of it, of how, like, what compromise we're talking about, because I really think that people misunderstood
Mhm.
what I'm saying. I'm not saying to
Right.
ever compromise liberty. I'm saying compromise a strategy. And really what I'm saying is infiltrate the fucking GOP, because right now they're a vacuum.
See,
And
that
I
I
don't
100%
care.
agree with. Yeah.
Like
Right.
that's what I'm saying. Change a
Yeah.
strategy. Compromise on how you want to see us win so that we can win. That's
100%. Yeah.
that is exactly what I'm talking about. When I say use compromise as a tool, I never once said compromise liberty. I said
Right.
use compromise as a tool to advance liberty. And I think the people that got it are the people that I see espouse that message constantly, where it's like they don't care what party it is. And the truth be told, like, I would love to see a libertarian, a very minarchist government, but I don't see it
Mhm.
happening the way that we're seeing it. And furthermore, I would say, um, 90% of the people that voted for Joe Jorgensen this year compromised, and they don't even
Yeah.
realize it. How many of those
I
people
did.
voted for Joe Jorgensen in the primaries? Like, because I voted for Adam Kokesh
Not me.
in the primaries. And I
Yeah.
think a lot of people were very disappointed at the start with Joe Jorgensen. In fact, we spoke with uh, on our show and just in private and public Twitter. Lots of people said they were extremely disappointed, but they voted for her. But then there
Yeah.
were a lot of those same people that were getting mad at me, saying, "Well, you're saying to compromise liberty." I'm like, "No, I'm saying compromise your plan." Now, you could go ahead and you compromised when you voted for her because you don't think she's the best
Yeah.
person on the LP, but you didn't write in someone else like I did. I wrote in I wrote in a candidate because
Mhm.
I live in California and it doesn't matter, and I wanted
Right.
basically a protest about that I thought was funny, and you know that's what it's like. It's I guess it's strange to me that people will compromise on other things and just not see it as a compromise. But then when you bring it up, like, hey, when you bring it up in the way it brought it up, they get really defensive. Like,
Mhm.
you're asking me to give up liberty. I'm like, I'm not asking you to give up liberty. I'm asking you to
And
reassess your
see,
plan. I'm asking
see
all of
that,
us to.
and that was my initial reaction when I first saw it, and then I realized that's probably not what you're trying to say. And then that's when I reached out to you and was like, "Hey, let's talk about it." So, yeah, it's definitely good. I didn't see the other tweet underneath it clarifying that you were not saying compromise liberty.
Right.
No, in fact, if I did say that, someone send help because it's an SOS.
Right,
I
right, right. That's why I mean, that's when I read that, I immediately saw as a tool, and I'm like, as a tool is great
Yeah.
because the first place that my mind actually went to was in reference to, like Libertarian Party candidates. Most of these people seem to come out of the woodwork because they're not I'm going to use probably the wrong word, but infiltrating lower levels of government as much, right? They don't want to get involved with government,
Thank
right?
you.
And there's a compromise
Right.
that they need to make because if they don't, it's going to hurt them. You need to get involved at lower levels and work your way
Absolutely.
into the system,
Hmm.
gaining liberty in small places along the way until you reach a point where you can go for the larger liberties. But
Yes.
make that sacrifice, get involved in the system. It- I mean, it's ironic that so many libertarians want little or no government, but to do anything about that, you got to get involved with big government to do it.
It,
Yeah.
it, it, it's true. I make this joke all the time that libertarians either want nothing to do with government or they want to be president. And
Yep.
there's like not a lot of middle ground. And I have to say, I just want to take a moment to give it up to y'all because the Young Americans for Liberty this year, they got a lot of candidates and a lot of like smaller candidates in, and that's the kind of work that needs to be done.
Exactly.
And
Hmm.
and they didn't have to compromise their values. They didn't compromise the end goal. And I want to make sure people don't think I'm saying like, hey, look, if there's a GOP candidate and there's a libertarian candidate and they both have an equal shot, then you vote for the GOP candidate. No, vote for the libertarian candidate because long term that's going to get you more liberty. But if you have
Hmm.
a like Georgia like situation where you've got a GOP candidate, a Democratic candidate, and a Libertarian candidate. And if our Senate flips, we get super fun communism, then you fucking vote for the GOP candidate.
Right.
They have a better shot. And sorry if you feel like that's compromising liberty. It's not. It's stopping tyranny. At some point, you have to realize that you're not just playing. We're not at the Great Reset. Okay, we're not at a start point where we're not at the founding fathers table anymore where we have all this liberty and everybody is for it. No, we're in the middle of a fucking war, and sometimes you have to make lateral moves, and
Right.
those lateral moves, you need to put aside who you want to win, how you want to see the win, and you just go for the W, and you make sure that you always ask yourself these questions. Is the liberty, has it already been lost in this area? If I make this choice, am I going to gain liberty or lose liberty? Is this choice that I'm about to make going to be a long-term gain for liberty or a short-term gain for liberty? And you weigh those options, and it sucks because you have to do it every time. And I'm sorry I'm so angry, but I've been watching this for months and months and months. I see it
Right.
over and over and over. I'm not telling people that they should have gone out and voted for Donald Trump because really I didn't give a fuck. In fact, that was the tweet that came out before the election was all you people are so pressed about the president and you don't give a fuck about your local elections. And
Hmm.
it's like that's where this is going to happen. The Senate and the House is where change is going to be affected. And people being so like all of a sudden like very like, oh well, we spoiled the election, oh well, Trump is getting cheated, oh Biden's this whatever. Like these people do not have nearly as much power as the group of people that are going to be in charge. So you better pay attention to the people that are actually going to be changing things in this country. And you better be watching and really asking yourself those questions. And to be perfectly honest, I don't give a fuck if people think I'm not a real libertarian or I'm some weed Republican or what they think, because I'm real angry at most people right now.
Yeah, but see,
Yeah,
that's a pretty
I
easy
can see
place to
that.
be in. I could, yeah, it's not hard to be
Real,
in that
real quick
place.
though,
Yeah.
real quick, I want to acknowledge Ed. has donated an entire diamond over on D Live
An entire
just to
diamond.
give the message that Vega is a fig. So yeah, thank you, Ed. And
Hi, Ed.
Elephant Man donated ice cream and a lemon, which is awesome too. No message though. But yeah, thank you guys.
I'm afraid people are going
Sorry
to be
about that.
in the comments. So
No, no, they're being nice to you for the most part, except for Vega saying that compromise is for status.
but we can
But
take
he's joking. He's
there.
joking though. He's messing with
That usually comes with a grain of salt. So it's
Yeah.
okay, I would ask this: would you rather compromise how you win, or would you rather compromise how you get the liberty, or would you rather compromise away your liberty? That's what I'm saying. Like, if you went
Right.
and you want to vote for a candidate because you're going to feel good about your purist ideology, but we all get our guns taken away and it's fucking commie, it's just like California in 2 years. Okay, you kept your ideology. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm just trying to weigh the scales here. And again, I'm not doing it at the same level as people saying, "Oh, everyone should have voted for Trump." I'm actually
Right.
arguing something completely different.
right.
That I'm actually that tweet actually came because I'm worried about Georgia right now.
Mm,
I'm worried
Yeah.
about our Senate.
mm.
I
Yeah.
can see that for sure. Real quick though, Henry from the chat is asking, how do we compromise to promote the Second Amendment? I feel like everything has been tried. I kind of agree with him there. Now, this was before you had explained exactly what you meant, so you might be still talking about the, compromising on liberty. But he's asking, how do you compromise for the liberty of the Second Amendment
Well, you can't.
here?
You can't. First of all, you never compromise backwards.
Right.
Um, One of the things that a lot of right libertarians decided that they were going to ignore was Trump's bump stock ban. And
Yeah.
to me, that was enough to be like, I don't want to vote for this guy. But, uh, not but, that's it. That's it. It was a stupid fucking thing to do.
It
Um, and he should
was,
have
yeah.
done it. And in any other year, it would have been like, I'm not, voting for that guy. And then in this year, I was like, I'm not voting for that guy. But like, to
Yeah.
so if I look at it in the big picture and I go, hey man, we've already lost on this, and then our other option is Joe Biden, and say the Democrats had the House and the Senate already, I probably would have voted for Trump.
Oh, yeah.
I would have seen what was happening. So I'm really looking at, like, you have to look at all the pieces. When you're playing a game of chess, you don't just go, this is like
Right.
this is how I can win and don't
Hmm.
worry about any other thing on the board. You have to kind of look at where you're at. This year, I mean, I'm in California. I was like, there's no point in me voting for Trump, because it wouldn't help.
Right.
Uh,
Mm,
I, I thought at the
Right.
time that we had a pretty much lock in the Senate. And so I didn't really care. And two, I really wanted someone that is a super far left ballot opener to see my ballot and see that I wrote in 2016's Hillary Clinton and be like, this bitch, and know that I wrote on the most ineffectual Democrat that I could,
That's
that
funny.
vote was for a Democrat that would do nothing for the Democratic Party. So that's what I went with. I felt like long term, that was the best choice for me. Now, if I was in a state that was like, if I was in Georgia, or if I was in, you know, Nevada maybe, or somewhere where it would have been a toss up, it would have been a different situation. But I don't have to really make that call because I don't live there. So
right.
on answer to what I would have done.
Well, well,
So
well, see, I went through all of that same stuff with casting my own vote, but I knew here in Florida, I knew Florida was going to go to Trump. After Black Lives Matter, it was going to go to Trump. But I was like, I had three candidates in front of me, and none of them deserved my vote. But I was like, I've got to play the long game. If enough votes come in for the Libertarian Party, they get on the stage. So I was like, that's where I'll cast my vote, in the hopes that maybe, just maybe, enough people are libertarian
Hmm.
minded out there enough to go ahead and vote for that third party, and we can try and play that and get a 2024 position on the stage. You know what I mean? Didn't
well,
work,
I
but
I did that in 2016. I voted for Austin Peterson in the
Yeah.
primaries, and then I voted for Gary Johnson. Um, because I really did believe that he had a shot. Like I thought that Austin Peterson at the time, I thought, man, this guy has a shot of getting up there, and um, he didn't. But and then I thought Gary Johnson might actually have a shot to get the Libertarian Party to like 15%, like because I was wildly inaccurate in my thinking. Um, so with that kind of wound still healing from 2016, I had initially planned to vote for Jo Jorgensen, even though I was wildly underwhelmed by her.
I,
And
Yeah.
when she made the tweet, or her social media person made the tweet about being anti-racist, I
Hmm.
and then I saw the pandering. I thought I could vote for her and see if she could get up there and long term, I kind of thought what you're thinking, but I thought she's lost so much support from her own party, and she's not gaining it from the left like she thinks she is. And
Hmm.
I kind of just saw the writing on the wall, and really it bothered me. And we had Austin Peterson on our show on Sunday, and we talked to him, and he said the exact same thing, that whoever wrote that either doesn't understand critical race theory and Marxist ideology. So
Hmm.
it was just either stupid or wicked. It was probably just stupid, but that's not someone that should be
Yeah.
running the country. That's not who you want to be in your party. Libertarians, I always say it, they're the smartest people in the room, but they just don't shut up, so no one wants to talk to them, myself included. But when she
Yeah.
said that, I was like, well, we picked somebody that is now saying things that are just, it's just, she just continues to make gaffes. And that can't be, like, when you're already the underdog, you can't have those kind of mistakes. You can't have those kind of gaffes. It's
right.
just not something that I wanted to support. And it's not something that I saw a lot of people were going to support. And really, at the polls, libertarians, I don't think so much voted for Jo Jorgensen as they voted for the Libertarian Party in spite of Jo Jorgensen.
Well, in regard to compromise, and I have to say that I think race is would have been the wrong approach to take, but I already felt like she was an identity politics pig as a woman, right? But would it not have been a smart strategy to play up that aspect more so than they did and try and swing some of the left vote away from Biden to get at least a decent amount of votes? Would
Was it
that is that a useful compromise that the party could have made? I don't agree with going into the they
that's the
should have left.
compromise, they did make. So how did it turn out
Well,
for
well, I don't think they
them?
played her up enough is the thing,
I
because
think
they
they
did
did.
go into the race conversation, and that was stupid.
I think they tried to appeal to I think they tried to appeal to the left in a pandering way, and I think they thought they could get away with it because the left loves pandering. But
Hmm.
the people that really love that were already going to vote for Biden. I mean, because they didn't care. People that were going to go for that type of argument were going to vote for whoever was the furthest left candidate, because they didn't vote for Biden because they like Biden. They voted for Biden because they wanted their agenda met. It's why literally a week after Biden is named president-elect by the super official media, who is now in charge of elections, that the heads of Black Lives Matter wrote a letter, an open letter to Biden saying, "We got you the black vote. You owe us some things." So they don't care who
Hmm.
is in office. They care about the office. As far as they're
Right.
concerned, they are controlling that office, and they weren't going to do that with Jo
Right.
Jorgensen. And I don't want to make this about like her, because I really think she's a smart lady. She seems really nice. Um,
Hmm.
I think a lot of what the issue was is that maybe her social media was mismanaged a little bit, and they tried to backtrack on it. And I think that we were in a unique situation where we have a pandemic and we have, riots going on, but she also didn't really come down hard enough on the pandemic lockdowns at all. In fact,
Right.
there, John, is there anything notable that you can think of her coming down on lockdowns?
No, that's the thing, and that would have been a huge move for her. Massive. Like that, if she had come down and said, "Look, this is unconstitutional. This is anti-liberty." Blah blah blah. She did all that. Yeah, no one's going to listen, but the people who would listen are going to listen really hard, and
Yeah,
are more likely to vote for her because they see, oh, she's against tyranny. Like the libertarians are supposed to be.
but in,
But no, as far as I know, she hasn't said really anything about it. At
I
least
mean,
nothing substantial.
well, I would ask this though, from the standpoint of lockdowns and stuff. I mean, you know, states were handling their own lockdowns. It was happening a lot at the state level. So
Yeah,
isn't
it was.
that the appropriate level for it to have been happening at? And
no, it
it
shouldn't have happened at all. You
Um,
don't lock people in their homes when they're not prisoners.
right. The,
That's
the
the response
Constitution
that
trumps state laws or state orders.
you
The
don't lock
Constitution
people in
is
their homes.
right.
When you quarantine people, you quarantine sick people. You don't quarantine healthy people.
Right.
And we're seeing now what's going on. Like, it doesn't matter if we wear masks, it doesn't matter if we're indoors, it doesn't matter
Hmm.
if what we're doing, because we're seeing rises and falls. And they're not correlating with, like, it's not like they're going down when we wear masks. In fact, they're starting a drop, a trending drop before mask mandates start. In fact, a lot of mask mandates weren't even until we were at our lowest point, and then they started going back up. And so, no, I mean, that's, we're now getting into a whole different thing. But as a libertarian and as a libertarian candidate, no, you don't say, it would never say it's good enough at the state level. I would say stop locking people in their homes. This is crazy.
well, right. So
Hmm.
so then my question is, does that mean that we sh- you would want the federal government to step in and tell states that they had to remove lockdowns? Is is that do you see where I'm at here? I'm like,
Yeah,
how do you stop the lockdowns
Yeah,
if states are going on their own
because
rights,
again,
but you
the
see it as
yeah,
unconstitutional?
when it's unconstitutional, yeah, I don't like
mhm.
having the federal government step in and say you have to give these people their liberty back.
But
But
that's their
again,
job.
I'm willing to
It's
take
one of
the
the few things
fucking
they should do.
compromise and like
Yeah,
say, I'm willing to compromise to advance liberty to say, you know what, we're going to go ahead and not let states lock down people. And really,
yeah.
like, I mean, uh,
Right. See, that's where, and so that's where I get into
Well,
this
that's the
very
thing.
uncomfortable water where it's like, that's a lot of power to give the federal, not a power to give them, but perceived power from the government standpoint to be able to say, okay, all states, we're stepping in, remove your
Yeah.
lockdowns, this, that, and the other. And it's
but
like,
no, but
oh,
you could,
Right, but you're stepping on the states in order to enforce the Constitution, in order to guarantee people's rights, which is different than stepping on the
you're
states
not
to force them to do something. It's
exactly.
different.
When you're enforcing the Constitution, you're doing the will of the people. You're not, uh, when it's to go against tyranny, that's a different thing. At some point, it's like the same thing in 2008 where California voted against gay marriage, and the Supreme Court stepped in and said, hey, these are rights. You can't just like you can't just take people's rights away no matter how long they haven't had them for. If it's a right, it's a right. And um, that's literally what, like, if we're going to have a government, that's their job to like they're supposed to protect us from tyranny. They're supposed to protect us from that. What this is not
Right.
protecting people. You're just locking people up. This is not protecting people, keeping them in their homes. And,
Destroying them financially and mentally and emotionally. You're
and we have
destroying
some of the
people.
highest suicide rates
Hmm.
among men in this country that we've had in years. Men are
Yeah, no one
killing
wants to talk about that though.
teenagers. Teenagers in some parts of this country have tripled their suicide rate from last year. That's scary. That's
I'm sure the I'll bet you those are included in the 250,000 or whatever deaths, the coronavirus deaths that are in this country. I
And,
bet you those are counted.
and
Yeah.
I can't think of any time in history where we've had just a full year of just continual lockdowns like this, but we have had pandemics before, and we have had pandemics that don't have a vaccine before. And I think a lot of the reason why this even took off is because we have social media. Because really, I think if this happened in
Hmm.
1976, the news would be like, this is a thing that happened. And then we would all be like, oh, that's scary. And then we would go to work the next day. And then we would forget about it until
Right.
we got sick. And then, some of us would get sick, some of us wasn't. Let's look at what's actually happening. Let's look at how many people are actually going to the hospital. Let's look at how many people are actually dying from this. You
Well,
know, every,
well,
Hmm.
I'm under the impression that Trump leans more pro-liberty. So why didn't
Mm.
we have that happen from the federal level? I mean, that is
I'll
that
tell
not
you
a
exactly
valid
why.
question? Um,
no, I think it's a very valid question. I
Hmm.
think that Trump
But
was.
the
Go ahead.
answers. Oh, go ahead. No,
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 go
go ahead.
ahead.
You're the guest. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
All right, all right. So for the last 4 years, the Democrats, leftists, everyone like that were going on and on about how Trump is a fascist dictator. And then this comes along, and it's the perfect opportunity for him to be a fascist dictator, right? So they're poking him with the stick, saying, "Hey, come on, do fascism, do a fascism." And he was like,
I like
"No, he
your
can't do that.
stereotype.
There's an election coming up, and he can't look like a fascist
And
dictator
he made the
during
right
that time."
but
I it's like we share a brain. That's exactly like
but but
the
he
plan.
had but he has a Supreme Court to back him up. He had the Supreme Court. If he had made that decision, the Supreme
It
Court could
doesn't
have
matter.
backed that as constitutional.
I
He
think
is
that
Doesn't
Trump
protecting the
matter.
well,
Constitution.
I think that
I
the
agree,
plan
but
was that Trump was going to win the election and then he was going to do
hmm,
that. He was going to go after China. And I think that's why he's going
yeah,
so hard now, because I think he realizes he missed that opportunity. He should have done it before. And um, I, I think that he probably should have. I think that he could have pointed easily at all the riots, and when he said, "Look, I'm not sending in the National Guard until these states tell me that they need me to send
he
in the
did, yeah,
National Guard," I think that showed that should have been enough to satisfy any rational person. Like, this guy's not a fascist
yeah,
dictator, and anybody that wanted him to be a fascist dictator, it doesn't matter what he did.
right.
So I think that I feel like he did make the wrong move by not saying like you can't mandate this and that. And now we're kind of seeing some things like Gavin Newsom um, just was told like, hey man, what you're doing is unconstitutional. You can't do this and this and this in California. You're not a king. You're their governor, and the scariest part to me is not that Gavin Newsom did a lot of stuff that was unconstitutional and then has flaunted it in our face that he'll do whatever he wants and we'll do whatever he says. It's that we have 70% of the population here going, yes, yes, please just can you put the
Hmm.
boot further in my throat? Like
Yeah,
people
just right
so
here if you can,
yeah,
just right.
people were so mad that he was told that what he was doing was unconstitutional. People were so mad in
Okay.
California that their constitutional rights were being protected. And that's what it's like that's goes back to like what I'm saying in this whole scenario, is that these people are so brainwashed that they're not going to listen to a head-on message of liberty a lot of times. It's a
Hmm.
look, I'm not saying the Libertarian Party's wrong. I'm not even saying any other message is wrong. I'm saying you can be right and ineffectual.
Yeah.
And you have to figure out how to be effective. And you have to realize that the audience that you're playing to, like, you are not going to get big gains, especially when you're having, like, libertarians are not fighting just the left. They're also fighting the right, who are just as socialist as they are, just about different things. They just pick different things. But at least the right is like, oh, we're buddies. The right
Hmm.
is willing to kind of like listen. And right-leaning people in the community where we could affect change are really willing to listen.
Well,
So that's what I'm
Mm-hmm.
talking about.
well, so the uphill battle that I see when when talking about something like this is the idea that you're effectively looking at a generation that kids that are 18, 19, 20 years old, these young new voters coming of age, coming out into the big bad world, have lived in a big brother society,
Mm-hmm.
right? The Fourth Amendment went away a long time ago. So there are people who have lived their entire lives knowing that everything that they're talking about on the device that they were given as a kid is
Mhm.
being monitored. So they're
Mm-hmm.
used to it. They're used to government
Yeah,
being right there as an umbrella over them.
I
So
agree.
to get to chip away at that, something
Hmm.
that's so embedded, it's easier for them to say, yes, bring the boot because I've been living under the boot for so long. You're talking about
Mm-hmm.
liberties and my freedoms. Well, one of
Yeah,
them I know of is never been there for me.
yeah, I agree
Yeah.
with that's
And
why.
the weight of the boot is comfortable after a while. You'll miss it
Yeah,
if you don't have it.
it's
Yeah.
scary. Freedom, liberty is scary, and it's a
It's
hard won
risky.
battle.
Yeah.
And it's responsibility. Freedom comes with a lot of responsibility. A lot of
And
responsibility.
that's what people don't realize. Like, oh, you just do whatever you want. That's what that means. You just get to do whatever you want. It's like, no, that's not
No,
what that means. Like, yeah.
and that's literally what my whole point was with that tweet is that like this is not going to be that head-on battle. Like we are not like as much as a lot of liberty people are like we're going out there with our guns and our Hawaiian shirts and we're going to
No,
do
you're
this
not.
all. We're not. We are
Mm-mm.
not the Goliath in this situation. Just we can and you know what? Here's the thing. I made another tweet. I can't even remember what it was about. Um, something about like it's something about like the difference in the parties and like what would happen if there was anarchy. And literally, almost everyone, what the response was like, "I'll take my chances. I've seen the left." Like, no, you haven't. You've seen what the left has shown you. These people are good at organizing. These people are good at
Yeah.
infiltrating. These people are also backed by billionaires. They're
Mm-hmm.
backed by big tech. They're backed by the big business, by most of the government at this point.
Right.
I mean,
Look
really
at the
think about
squad, right? The squad is a perfect
Yeah.
example of
that.
how they slow
So
play their way in.
exactly what you said is exactly why I made that tweet because it
Mm-hmm.
took about 47 years for the left to get where it is now. And they didn't start by like let's have Bernie Sanders be president. Like that's not what that didn't come out of nowhere.
Right.
I mean, liberty has to be back in the school system. I tell, like, I think if you want to fight for something, the biggest battle for liberty right now is the next generation, is school choice. And I'm telling you,
Mm-hmm.
libertarians keep taking the stance of no taxes, going to public schools, or no deal. They're gonna lose every time. They need to
Mm-hmm.
start advocating for school choice. They need to start advocating that children that are in homeschool, their parents get funds so that they can homeschool, so that they can afford to
Mhm.
homeschool their children. That they need to start advocating at a local level, calling their districts, calling their teachers unions, calling their reps. They need to do this. If you want things to change, you need to do these things
Right.
because
Yeah.
that's how you do it is that we educate our children in a way that liberty is something that they is ingrained in them. Like my
Yeah.
kids don't trust the government. My children do not trust the government at all. And I don't want them to.
No, of
Like,
course not.
I don't want them to not question things. They're not scared. And yeah, I tell them things.
Mm-hmm.
Like my 4-year-old said, "Am I going to be president one day after Kamala Harris?" Because she saw them talking about her being the first woman vice president. I said, "You can be, baby. Like I'm not telling you to put a gun in your kid's hand and tell him whatever. Even though my 6-year-old, I have no problem taking him to a shooting range. I just
Right.
don't. It's not like I'm letting him go out into the street.
Well, freedom
I'm just
freedom ain't free. You got to work for it.
Yeah,
You
and that's
gotta pay
really
your
what I
buck
meant
$5,
by
yeah.
that. And I think a lot of people are doing the work right now. Um, but I think that all I really meant by that was if the plan isn't working, then you need to be willing to compromise on your plan instead of compromising on liberty. And that's really
Yeah,
what I meant by that.
and I 100% agree with that. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
That definitely makes sense.
Well, John, you've totally been ignoring the chat. I just want you to know that.
I've been ignoring. I've been reading everything the chat's been
Have you?
saying,
Can you give us a
just not out
rundown?
loud. Michael Vega's in there spurging. Henry's joining him, and Ed said some stuff about he'll blank, you're blank.
Oh gosh, Ed.
Wait, is he
That
gonna?
claim has been disputed.
Hey,
Whatever
were, were
that thing is,
were
yeah,
there any
whatever the
offers
joke
to
was.
blank my blank?
I think it was just a general offer
I
to
think it
Okay,
anyone
was
who was
towards
reading
you.
it.
I
you know,
highly doubt there's any offers towards me. So
I like the ego boost
Aw,
when they're directed at me.
right.
It makes me feel special. That special ed, as it were. All right. Well, we're running near the end of
Right.
our time. You know what?
Yeah.
I totally get where you're coming from. I
Yeah.
mean, just there were so many things just close to home that I could equate what you said. And but it's this is a perfect example of how it is. I said it to you. Public education. I will always blame public education for the way people are and social media and the access on the devices, the whole thing, where it's just dumbed us down to where we can't understand the simple nuance of a sentence anymore. Just what it says.
Yeah.
No, don't try and read into it. Look at what it just what it says, and it is that. I don't know. People are
well, I don't mind explaining. I think it was the like yelling like
right.
through the and the like. Well, that was what I was
Yeah.
like. It's not my job to like baby this like I literally explained this like 100 times, and most people are like, oh yeah, like
Right.
that makes sense. But some people, like one guy was just so angry. He's like, you're just a libertarian retard. Like I was like, first of all,
Right, right.
I don't like that word. I think it's a mean word.
Yeah,
uh,
we don't use libertarian around here,
yeah,
okay?
that
We
wasn't
don't
the word
use
I used. But
Yeah.
like I was
I
just
know.
like,
I
you know,
know.
but then he also called me a heathen. So I was like, oh, well, okay, thanks for the compliment. You know, like it's like, okay.
Yeah.
Because I.
Yeah, at least I
Well,
got something to fall back on.
But yeah, that's really all I meant. And I do agree with you, like that we just need to get rid of public education. And I have no problem like just chipping away at it as small as possible.
well, they've done a good job
Yeah.
of getting rid of the education portion of it. Now, if
Yeah,
they'll just get rid of the public part of it, they'd do all right. When it's all said and done, because I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan myself. you know,
yeah.
I
Not
where's our
they're
school
not bringing
marms,
us their best.
right?
So
Let's go back to Little House on the Prairie school marms and give them some chalkboards to write their notes on. And
well, yeah, and I
Yeah.
think a lot of parents maybe just don't want to do that. And
yeah, they've forgotten
that's
the
the
most
bottom
See,
line.
they've forgotten the
see,
most
that's the thing
important
is if
part of
I
having kids, right?
you got to
Yeah,
teach them, yeah. And see, that's the thing is I would want to be the one who homeschools my kids, not necessarily, the mother like that. I don't know. I guess
well,
I would
yeah.
trust myself more with
I
it.
mean, I had a science teacher. I mean, I don't know if it's a science teacher or some dude in his mom's basement, but like she said she was a science teacher, and she was like, well, when your kid's in seventh grade, then just know, public school teachers will be there because I tutor kids from Sylvan. And I was like, if you were that smart, you would know Sylvan's not a public school and people are paying you to do
Right.
that. So
Right. That's
they're
a
still not
tutor
sending
thing.
their kid
Yeah.
to public school. Even if their kid does get behind, they would still rather not send them to public school. So
Well,
maybe you're not the
Yeah.
best person, like, and but it did make me think. I mean,
Yeah.
literally, it was like, maybe I should go back and get my teaching credential while my kids are little, so that by the time they are older, I can do that. So that's what I'm starting to do now because, again, I look, nobody has to follow my lead. You can do nothing. You can do nothing and complain. I don't care. But I want to make a change, so this is the best way to do it. So I'm just going to get my credentials so that I can be there and support my kids, because
Yeah.
I feel like that's the best thing I can do to promote liberty and advance liberty, is just instill it in the next generation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I think a good community school. We need good community schools. Like if you could get in your community, like everybody around is like, 2 days out of the week, they'll give up 3 hours of their time to teach the kids in the neighborhood a certain skill set that they have. And it goes
Yeah.
around the neighborhood. Maybe somebody's science, somebody's math, somebody's, woodworking, whatever, outdoorsy, gardening. And they just go around the
Yeah.
neighborhood all week learning from the local community.
Yeah, which also leads kids into the idea of, oh, look, I found a love and a passion for this before I get to college.
Yeah.
Right?
So do I need to go to college, or do I need to go to trade school, or do I need to go to apprenticeship? And it sets them up for a path of, one, loving learning, and two, having a career they love. And then you don't have to buy into that socialist bullshit lie where everybody can do whatever they want, and just some people will be
Mm-hmm.
laborers and everyone else can be an artist. Like, that's because we all know that that's a lie. It never works out that way. So, like, if you can show someone, like, hey, I have a passion for this, I'm good at it, and there's a lot that goes into it, and teaching a kid that getting kudos and being told you're the best at everything maybe isn't the best way, but like, if you have an aptitude for something, then you should go for that, and there's a great sense of satisfaction in it. I don't know, I think it might be a good plan all around.
Yeah, the only thing you have to do is make sure and do
Yeah.
background checks, make sure they're not on the sex offender list, and make sure that they're not a communist or a
Yeah.
foreign spy or, or
You know what? It's a bummer that
secret
parenting is hard,
spies.
right? It's a bummer that you can't
Yeah.
just go through life and be like, oh, well, everything is in this color section. So I go red, I go blue, I go gold. Oh, I live in this city good, teacher good. Like, sorry, you can't do that. Like,
Right?
uh,
Yeah.
and that's how we got here. So,
All right, let's get the hell out of here. I'm gonna pass it to you, John, to do all that. There's things down there that they can
There are
find
things down
us.
there.
There are things. Not I'm not pointing at you, Brett. I'm pointing at the
oh,
stuff
okay. I'm
down
like,
there
can,
below
can I
you.
Description.
can I mention it really quick?
Oh yeah, I was
Oh
gonna
yeah,
throw it.
yeah,
I was gonna throw that to you before after John was. But
Oh,
yes,
okay.
please go ahead. No,
yeah.
go
Go
go.
ahead.
Talk all you
Well,
want.
you guys know you can find me on Twitter at Tweets by Britt, on Parlor at Parleys by Britt, but I'm never there. I'm one half of the Freckles and Britt show. We're on every Sunday morning. This Friday, 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, the best time zone. We're gonna have a stream for a local pregnancy center, which is a pregnancy center that helps women find options, that supports them throughout their pregnancy, and enables them to be able to, like, keep their child or put them up for adoption in a place that they feel comfortable with, and just kind of gives them all the information. So, Thanksgiving's coming up, Christmas is coming up. We kind of want to help out. And so you guys tune in for that Friday, 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time.
Pacific Standard Time.
Awesome. Hell yeah.
And if you don't,
It's an inferior time zone,
if you
but
don't,
you
you're
know
a
it'll do.
statist cuck.
That's true. If you don't,
No better
you are
do
the most statist person. That's right.
John,
So
tell them about
yes,
those things down there.
I was trying to. So down below in our description, we've got all of our links to where you can find us. You can find our Twitter at the GenGapP. You can find our Discord server, which is a lot of fun. A lot of cool people hang out there, including myself. We've got our subscribe star. So if you have a passing fancy for us, or you think we deserve a little bit of money, you can throw it our way, and you get special perks for it. So make sure you do that. And then we've got we've got freedomscoop.com down there. We can find all of our stuff and other inferior creators like Billy Edgar, Stephen Ignoramus is over there. Wyatt from the Breakdown with Birkenhoff is over there. R-rated conservative, and of course the Freckles and Brit show is over there as well. And while you're over there, you can buy our merch. We got T-shirts, such as the one I'm wearing now. Can't really see it. There we go. Which is the one I'm wearing now. And we've got mugs.
There's one up there.
And if you put the code GenGap in at checkout, you can get 15% off your purchase. So make sure you do that. It's a lot of fun. Helps us out. And if you, tell you what, if you send us pictures of you wearing our merch, we'll put it on the show.
That's catchy. I like that.
Yeah.
All right, we're gonna get the hell out of here. Appreciate everybody who's been in the chat. John's been not telling us about. It was a good wrap up, I guess. It wasn't bad. It kind of summed everything up. But please make sure and hit the like button on your way out. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button. Catch up with Britt and make sure and do what she said, or she's gonna be mean. She's gonna be mad. Look at her. She's angry. Look at her.
Look at her.
I wouldn't
So
want to
mean.
piss her off, and I have pissed her off. So there. Huh. But we will be back again on Friday. What day is this? Is this Wednesday? Yeah, we'll be back on Friday.
Yes.
Have we got something going on Friday, John?
Not this Friday.
Not this Friday.
Next
but
Friday.
Coming up soon.
Black
Okay.
Friday. We have Fritz from Fritzcast is going to be with us.
On Black Friday.
So, yeah, make sure you check that out on Black Friday.
So
day after
racist.
Thanksgiving.
We do not.
I didn't name it.
Is it better than Brown Thursday? I mean, it's funny. But anyway, we'll be back.
It's called Thanksgiving.
We'll be back on Friday for our regular episode. That'll be at 8:30 p.m. And then, of course, we'll be back in next week on Wednesday at 9:30 p.m. for another rousing episode of Shooting the Shit. Both of those times are Eastern time, the one and only true time zone, the one that really matters.
Correct.
Everything else is just posers. It's all they are.
That's right.
But we will be catching everybody the next time around. Britt, thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming on here and giving John a little education, a little smacking around. He needs it sometimes. These people don't listen. They don't. I mean, we've got to up their educational standards, and you do that for us. But we'll be out of here, folks. Thanks and have a good night. John, peace out.
See you guys.
The war will begin.